With respect to Ukraine, I think that we have done everything that we can to support the Ukrainian government and to deter Russia from moving further into Ukraine. But short of going to war, there are going to be some constraints in terms of what we can do if President Putin and Russia are ignoring what should be their long-term interests. Right now, what we've done is impose sufficient costs on Russia that, objectively speaking, President Putin should want to resolve this diplomatically. Get these sanctions lifted, get their economy growing again, and have good relations with Ukraine. But sometimes people don't always act rationally, and they don't always act based on their medium or long-term interests. That can't deter us, though. We've just got to stay at it. Wendell. Question, Mr. President, Republicans point to some of your executive orders as reason. They say that they can't trust you to implement legislation that they pass. Even if you don't buy that argument, do you hold yourself totally blameless? In the inability it appears to reach agreement with the Republican-led House? President Obama, Wendell, let's just take the recent example of immigration. A bipartisan bill passed out of the Senate, co-sponsored by not just Democrats but some very conservative Republicans. Who recognize that the system currently is broken and if, in fact, we put more resources on the border, provide a path in which those undocumented workers who've been living here for a long time and may have ties here are coming out of the shadows. paying their taxes, paying a fine, learning English if we fix the legal immigration system so it's more efficient. If we are attracting young people who may have studied here to stay here and create jobs here. That all is going to be good for the economy, it's going to reduce the deficit. It might have forestalled some of the problems that we're seeing now in the Rio Grande Valley with these unaccompanied children. And so we have a bipartisan bill, Wendell. Bipartisan agreement supported by everybody from labor to the evangelical community to law enforcement. So the argument isn't between me and the House Republicans. It's between the House Republicans and Senate Republicans. And House Republicans and the business community, and House Republicans and the evangelical community. I'm just one of the people they seem to disagree with on this issue. So that's on the comprehensive bill. So now we have a short-term crisis with respect to the Rio Grande Valley. They say we need more resources, we need tougher border security in this area where these unaccompanied children are showing up. We agree. So we put forward a supplemental to give us the additional. Resources and funding to do exactly what they say we should be doing, and they can't pass the bill. They can't even pass their own version of the bill. So that's not a disagreement between me and the House Republicans. That's a disagreement between the House Republicans and the House Republicans. The point is that on a range of these issues, whether it's tax reform, whether it's reducing the deficit, Whether it's rebuilding our infrastructure, we have consistently put forward proposals that in previous years and previous administrations would not have been considered radical or left-wing. They would have been considered pretty sensible, mainstream approaches to solving problems. I include under that, by the way, the Affordable Care Act. That's a whole other conversation. And in circumstances where even basic, common sense, plain, vanilla legislation can't pass because House Republicans consider it somehow a compromise of their principles, or giving Obama a victory, then we've got to take action. Otherwise, we're not going to be making progress on the things that the American people care about. Question: on the border supplemental, can you act alone? President Obama: well, I'm going to have to act alone because we don't have enough resources. We've already been very clear we've run out of money. And we are going to have to reallocate resources in order to just make sure that some of the basic functions that have to take place down there, whether it's making sure that these children are properly housed, or making sure we've got enough immigration judges to process their cases, that those things get done. We're going to have to reallocate some resources. But the broader point, Wendell, is that if, in fact, House Republicans are concerned about me acting independently of Congress, despite the fact that I've taken fewer executive actions than my Republican predecessor or my Democratic predecessor before that. Or the Republican predecessor before that, then the easiest way to solve it is passing legislation. Get things done. On the supplemental, we agreed on 80% of the issues. There were 20% of the issues that perhaps there were disagreements between Democrats and Republicans. As I said to one Republican colleague who was down here that I was briefing about some national security issues. Why wouldn't we just go ahead and pass the 80% that we agree on, and we'll try to work to resolve the differences on the other 20%? Why wouldn't we do that? And he didn't really have a good answer for it. So there's no doubt that I can always do better on everything, including making additional calls to Speaker Boehner. And having more conversations with some of the House Republican leadership. But in the end, the challenge I have right now is that they are not able to act even on what they say their priorities are. And they're not able to work and compromise even with Senate Republicans on certain issues. And they consider what have been traditionally Republican-supported initiatives. They consider those as somehow a betrayal of the cause. Take the example of the Export-Import Bank. This is an interesting thing that's happened. This is a program in which we help to provide financing to sell American goods and products. Around the world, every country does this. It's traditionally been championed by Republicans. For some reason, right now the House Republicans have decided that we shouldn't do this, which means that when American companies go overseas and they're trying to close a sale on selling Boeing planes, for example, or a GE turbine, or some other American product, that has all kinds of subcontractors. behind it and is creating all kinds of jobs, and all sorts of small businesses depend on that sale. And that American company is going up against a German company or a Chinese company. And the Chinese and the German company are providing financing and the American company isn't, we may lose that sale. When did that become something that Republicans opposed? It would be like me having a car dealership for Ford. And the Toyota dealership offers somebody financing and I don't. We will lose business and we'll lose jobs if we don't pass it. So there's some big issues where I understand why we have differences. On taxes, Republicans want to maintain some corporate loopholes I think need. To be closed because I think that we should be giving tax breaks to families. That are struggling with childcare or trying to save for a college education. On healthcare, obviously their view is that we should not be helping folks get healthcare. Even though it's through the private marketplace. My view is that in a country as wealthy as ours, we can afford to make sure that everybody has access to affordable care. Those are legitimate policy arguments. But getting our ambassadors confirmed, these are career diplomats, not political types. Making sure that we pass legislation to strengthen our borders and put more folks down there? Those. Shouldn't be controversial. And I think you'd be hard-pressed to find an example of where I wouldn't. Welcome some reasonable efforts to actually get a bill passed out of Congress that I could sign. Last question, Michelle Kaczynski. Question, you made the point that in certain difficult conflicts in the past, both sides had to reach a point where they were tired of the bloodshed. Do you think that we are actually far from that point right now? And is it realistic to try to broker a ceasefire right now? When there are still tunnel operations allowed to continue? Is that going to cause a change of approach from this point forward? President Obama, well, keep in mind that the ceasefire that had been agreed to would have given Israel the capability to continue to dismantle these tunnel networks. But the Israelis can dismantle these tunnel networks without going into major population centers in Gaza. So I think the Israelis are entirely right that these tunnel networks need to be dismantled. There is a way of doing that while still reducing the bloodshed. You are right that in past conflicts, sometimes people have to feel deeply the costs. Anybody who has been watching some of these images I'd like to think should recognize the costs. You have children who are getting killed. You have women, defenseless, who are getting killed. You have Israelis whose lives are disrupted constantly and living in fear. And those are costs that are avoidable if we're able to get a ceasefire that preserves Israel's. Ability to defend itself and gives it the capacity to have an assurance that they're not going to be. Constantly threatened by rocket fire in the future, and, conversely, an agreement that recognizes the Palestinian need to be able to make a living and the average Palestinian's capacity to live a decent life.